Second Democratic debate could come down to Biden versus Sanders. Miami Reuters. During the second night of the Democratic presidential debate on Thursday, most eyes will likely be trained on former Vice President Joe Biden and U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders, but for wildly divergent reasons. Biden will be looking to safeguard his front-runner status. He has enjoyed Sanders, a Vermont lawmaker, has been running second to Biden in most polls. But he has seen neither Biden nor Sanders was mentioned in a surprisingly heated first debate on Wednesday night, when 10 Democratic contenders clashed over healthcare and border policy but agreed there was a desperate need to remove Trump from the White House. The two top contenders will share the stage with 8 other Democrats, including 2 other top-tier candidates who both face challenges: Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and U.S. Senator Kamala Harris of California. The debate will also include U.S. Senators Michael Bennet and Kirsten Gillibrand, former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, U.S. Representative Eric Swalwell, self-help guru Marianne Williamson, and entrepreneur Andrew Yang. All 6 are polling, but the exchanges between Biden and Sanders, who will stand next to each other on stage, could steal the limelight. On the trail, an avowed Democratic socialist, Sanders has bashed the more moderate Biden over his record on trade, climate change, healthcare and, most recently, Biden's remarks about working with segregationists during his early days in the Senate. Bernie's choice. Democracy for America, a progressive advocacy group that endorsed Sanders in his 2016 presidential run, said Indiana a pre-debate memo that Thursday's debate offered Sanders a chance to prove he's the progressive best suited to not just beat Donald Trump, but also the rest of the Democratic field, including Joe Biden. But Sanders has not always played to type. He was notably pillorying Biden would not necessarily boost Sanders' campaign, said Democratic strategist Brad Bannon, who has worked for congressional and state candidates. If Biden slides, it helps one of the moderate candidates, Bannon said. The big problem for Warren, a progressive U.S. senator from Massachusetts, has been steadily climbing in opinion polls, pulling closer to Sanders for the number 2 slot behind Biden. She was the first. Warren is sucking the oxygen out of Bernie's campaign, Bannon said. She is siphoning. Sanders may choose instead to burnish his progressive credentials at the debate to fend off Warren, who was on stage for Wednesday's night debate and emerged largely unscathed, as several of the lesser-known contenders turned their fire on one another. For Biden, the most experienced debater in the field, Thursday is an opportunity to steady the ship after a series of rocky moments that included a flip-flop on his abortion position and the controversy over his remarks about working with segregationist senators decades ago in the interest of civility and getting things done. As he has done on the campaign trail, he will likely spend the night defending his record and talking about Trump rather than other Democrats. Age gap. Biden, 76, and Sanders, 77, will make for a sharp contrast with the younger candidates on stage, including 37-year-old Buttigieg, 52-year-old Gillibrand, and 54-year-old Harris, 3 candidates who may represent the future of the party. Buttigieg, who enjoyed a brief initial surge as a candidate, comes to Miami after facing a crisis in South Bend. The fatal shooting of Harris' campaign has not taken flight like many political analysts expected and could use a boost from the debate. A polished public. One dynamic to watch is how aggressively Harris goes after Biden. She has criticized, but she is also considered a favorite for the vice presidential slot should Biden capture the nomination. She may instead. With 10 Democrats attending the 2-hour debate, each candidate will only have 60 seconds to answer a question and 30 seconds to respond to a follow-up, giving the field little time to leave a mark. Both Miami debates are sponsored by NBC, MSNBC, and Telemundo. NBC News, reporting by James Oliphant. Editing by Colleen.